When fake HOA cops came to seize my guns, they didn't expect a military veteran with a plan. What followed was a standoff that left them begging for mercy. This is how I turn the tables on them and how you can protect yourself too. The protagonist, a retired military officer named John Grayson, has spent years in a quiet suburban neighborhood, savoring his peaceful, solitary life. He's a man of routines and discipline. His pride is his home, a place where he feels safe, surrounded by his prized possessions, a carefully curated collection of firearms, a symbol of his past military service, and his unwavering belief in personal freedom. Despite his love for his weapons, John follows the community's HOA rules until a strange, unsettling feeling begins to stir. A neighbor, an ever-watchful figure, gives him the cold shoulder, whispering rumors about HOA regulations tightening on firearms in the neighborhood. John brushes it off, focusing on the simplicity of his daily life. But deep down, he knows something is coming. Something is about to disrupt the peace he's worked so hard to maintain. Part 2: A mysterious visit. One crisp morning, as John is enjoying his first cup of coffee, a knock at the door breaks his calm. Standing outside are two individuals in what looks like a uniform, official looking but not quite right. They introduce themselves as HOA officers, a man and a woman, with an aura of authority that feels a little too rehearsed. They claim to have received complaints about John's firearm collection, insisting that they must inspect his property as part of an HOA review. John's instincts, honed by years of military experience, immediately tell him something is off. He's polite, asks for identification and official paperwork, but the officers fumble their response, offering vague assurances instead of the legal documents he requests. His military training kicks in, and he starts mentally assessing the situation, how these officers move, their tone, their insistence. He feels a tightening in his chest. This isn't just a routine inspection. There's something more sinister behind their visit, and he isn't about to let them walk all over him. Part 3: The denial. John knows the law, and he knows his rights. He politely declines to let them in, asking them to provide the necessary paperwork. The officers push further, trying to convince him that it's a routine procedure. They begin circling the topic of his firearms collection, implying that it could be a threat to the community's safety. John stands firm, asking them to leave his property unless they have a warrant. Tension fills the air. The officers press harder, now getting visibly frustrated. John feels his blood start to boil. He knows this isn't just about guns, it's a power play. They're testing his boundaries, trying to break his resolve. With a calm demeanor, he tells them to leave or he will call the authorities. But as they refuse to back down, he realizes this is far from over. They won't just walk away. Something bigger is in motion. Part 4: Unveiling the truth. Unable to shake his suspicions, John decides to take action. He tells the officers that he's going to call the local police to verify their identities. The fake officers react with an almost imperceptible shift in their demeanor, their calm facade cracking for a moment. John steps inside to make the call, his military instincts guiding him. As he dials, he watches through the window. The officers exchange glances, and their body language shifts. This confirms his suspicions. They're not who they claim to be. He hangs up the phone with the police on the line, ready to take whatever happens next. But before he can speak to the police, one of the officers tries to push past him into the house. His reflexes are instantaneous. John stops the intruder with a firm, controlled grip, warning him to step back. Part 5: The standoff. By now, John is no longer just protecting his home, he's in full military protocol mode. His mind races through his training, recalling every defensive tactic, every countermeasure for a situation like this. The fake officers begin to shout, attempting to force their way into his home. John knows the police are on their way, but he cannot allow this escalating situation to turn violent. He warns them again, his voice cold and steady. The tension in the air thickens. It's as though time slows down. John can hear the faint sound of approaching sirens in the distance. The officers realize that their ruse is falling apart, but instead of retreating, they raise the stakes, claiming that they have the legal right to inspect his property without a warrant. John's resolve solidifies. He's not backing down. The officers try to act with authority, but their masks slip. John knows the law better than they do, and he's not intimidated by their threats. Part 6. The confrontation. The real police arrive, and the situation takes a sharp turn. The fake HOA officers immediately begin to stutter, their false bravado fading. The situation goes from tense to chaotic as the officers try to maintain their story. However, the real law enforcement sees through their lies and starts to question their legitimacy. The protagonist stands firm, even though the situation has the potential to explode into violence. His military training has taught him patience in moments of extreme stress. As the police begin to detain the fake officers, John's attention shifts to the larger picture. This was not just a simple case of mistaken identity. Someone, or something, is behind this attempt to seize his firearms, to intimidate him into compliance. John's mind races. The officers being arrested is just the beginning. Why did they choose him? What was their real goal? He begins to think about his life, his collection, and how this moment could change everything. Part 7. The aftermath. With the situation diffused, John sits back in his living room, staring at the ceiling. The adrenaline rush begins to fade, but the impact of what almost happened settles in. The community that once seemed safe now feels like a place under constant scrutiny, a place where privacy is no longer a guarantee. John feels violated. His rights, his personal freedom, were challenged by the very people who were supposed to serve and protect the community. The HOA's attempt to intimidate him has left a mark. But now John knows what's at stake. His military training tells him that these kinds of power plays can be the beginning of something worse, something more organized. He needs to prepare. He decides to research the HOA, its board members, and anyone who could be behind this attempt. It's clear this wasn't an isolated incident. Part 8. The fallout. In the aftermath of the confrontation, John becomes a local pariah. While some neighbors sympathize with him, others, influenced by the HOA's power and smear campaign, begin to distance themselves. John feels the weight of isolation, but he's determined to remain true to his principles. He begins meeting with others in the community who have faced similar issues with the HOA and learns that he's not the only one who's been targeted. As he continues to gather information, John realizes that the HOA's influence is vast, and its tactics go beyond simple inspections. They've been using fear and intimidation to control homeowners. Now that John knows their playbook, he begins to fight back, not just for his own rights but for the future of his community. Part 9. Preparing for the future. John understands that this isn't over. He starts preparing for whatever might come next, taking legal steps to safeguard his rights and his firearms collection. He contacts a lawyer, goes over his options, and starts planning his next move. But it's not just about legal protection. He begins to fortify his home both physically and mentally so that no one can take advantage of him again. He begins organizing meetings with others in the community, sharing his experience and building a network of individuals who are equally determined to fight back against the HOA. He also starts making sure his firearms are properly secured and ready for any future threats, all while continuing his research into the HOA's past actions and connections. Part 10. A new resolve. In the final part, John has fully transformed. He is no longer just a military veteran trying to live a quiet life. He's now a leader, a symbol of resistance against overreach. He's prepared for anything that may come his way, knowing that the HOA will likely target him again. But this time, he's ready. As he stands at his front door, looking out over his property, John feels a sense of peace and strength. The HOA may have tried to break him, but instead, they've made him more resolute. He's no longer just protecting his home, he's protecting his community, his freedoms, and his future.